This is my presentation on the effects of memory and history on identity. So, for some context, cultural identity is the cultural norms, practices, and ideologies shared by a group of individuals. History, in my terms, are the memory and experiences that people experience in this group. And collective memory is the collective history, memory, and experiences that all people in this group experience. My first stimulus source was by Colin Powell. He is the 65th Secretary of State, and this quote by him explains how his memory and his experiences affect how he works. He pays homage to the fallen soldiers because he was a fallen soldier. His memory affects who he is. My second stimulus source was the Maori tribe. The Maori tribe is the second largest ethnicity in New Zealand. Despite this, in the 20th century, Maori tribe, the distinct Maori tribe history, or being kept orally, was trying to be suppressed by European written histories. This led me to my research question. How does the way history is told and interpreted change the culture and the cultural identity of the people in it? And this led me to my thesis saying that cultural identity is the knowledge of history a person and a community has and remembers. A better understanding of this history gives a person a better grasp of their personal identity. My first piece of evidence, the perspectives I'll be going into are individual, groups, and then nations, and in nations there's an issue of suppression. My first piece of evidence is by Michael Ross, a Waterloo professor of psychology, and Chi Wang, a Cornell professor of human ecology. This quote describes how cultural conceptions are really what the individual thinks, how the individual works, and how how their individual memories affect them, their perceived importance, and their perceived ideas. My next quote is by Alida Aspen, a professor of English literature and literacy. This quote explains how to be part of a group, one must sacrifice. One must sacrifice to adopt part of the group, such as if you're a nation, you must sacrifice to be recognized as a national citizen. My third quote for this group is Narrative Identity by Dan McAdams, a professor of psychology at Northwestern University, and Kate McLean, a professor of psychology at Northwestern Washington University, describe how narrative identity reconstructs the autobiographical past and imagines a future just the way it was meant to be. So, and this gives the narrator or the storyteller a better understanding. This gives the storyteller a better sense of meaning and purpose, giving them a stronger connection to the community because they are the holders of history in this case. They are the new holder of history. My second lens is by groups. Cultural identity. This quote by Titus Palemski, a professor of intercultural relations at Hollingham University, describes how cultural identity is the kind of consciousness individuals which is ordered as a group as a basis of common elements, heritage, traditions, and symbols, and values and common norms. This means that cultural identity is the collective memory, collective traditions, symbols, groups, ideas, and ideologies that a group has. This really shows that memory affects cultural identity because it comes together in one whole package, cultural identity. My second piece of evidence for the group lens is by Alan Confiendo, a professor at University of Massachusetts Amherst specializing in cultural history, describes how cultural memory is the shared identity of individuals that unite a social group, and where members nevertheless have individual interests and motives. This means that in these groups, they would like to sacrifice some of their own ideas, some of their own ideologies to fit in better with the group. these shared memories that they have give them a better sense of self, better sense of community in these communities. And this affects the individual's identity because they would like to be part of this community, this culture. My third piece of evidence for this group, or for this lens, is also by Tadeusz Polinsky, and it describes how culture not only describes a person, but also the actions they take and their functions, showing that memory and history in turn affects individuals' ideas and actions that a person takes. My third lens was national. And in this lens, there's a problem. There's a lot of suppression going on the national level. For example, in the PRC, the People's Republic of China, they have implemented a Mandarin-only advanced education system, meaning only people who speak Mandarin are allowed to have higher levels of education. This is suppressing many different cultures across the entire Republic of China, only letting few people have a higher education. Another quote is similarly this is happening in Peru. In Peru, they took all the cultures and put them into one. This, in their words, was called folklore. This folklore was uniting the whole nation, or trying to. Unfortunately, this didn't quite work, and a lot of individuals had their culture suppressed and taken away from them. This is by Garcia Liendo, a professor of Hispanic Studies and a Princeton alumni. So this brings me to my conclusion. Cultural and personal identity is a history of a person and their culture. Human species cannot erase this history by suppressing it under social norms. Some limitations and implications I have are not all communities need even representation. Everyone is different. All people have slightly different ideologies. So implications are in smaller communities and large cultures alike. These are my references.
What is some evidence that you gathered that you didn't use, and why did you choose not to use it?
So I gathered some evidence on how memory actually works, and I would have liked to use it, but unfortunately it didn't quite fit into my essay or this presentation because it didn't quite make sense to how I was linking the presentation. If I would have liked to use it because it explains more why we remember what we remember, and why we remember what we remember, and how we remember what we remember, but I didn't end up using it because it just didn't quite make sense for the whole vibe of the presentation, the whole idea of the presentation.
Okay. And how does your conclusion respond to any of the other research or sources that you examined?
So my conclusion responded to some of my sources, some of them being the suppression sources such as the PRC. My conclusion goes over how we shouldn't suppress cultures. We should try and let all cultures be alive and to have a larger cultural diversity. But unfortunately this answers the source because in the PRC it describes how all cultures were just suppressed and it doesn't let a majority of cultures live. So my conclusion kind of responds saying, hey, you probably shouldn't do this. This is not good for it's not good for really anyone, especially the smaller cultures being suppressed.
Okay, thank you.